Oromo Voice Radio English program. Oromo Voice Radio is broadcasting to Oromia at 16-meter band or 17,850 kilohertz or on oromovoice.org website. OVR broadcasts Oromia Insight program every Monday for 15 minutes at 7:15 p.m. Oromia local time. Welcome to Oromia Insight program.
Welcome to Oromia Insight. My name is Ali Galeto. This is part 4 and the last part of the interview with Professor Hamdesa Tuso about Horn of African crisis, Ethiopia-Eritrea conflict and its implication for the Oromo people.
The implications for Oromo, if the war is to break out between Eritrea and Ethiopia or between TPLF and EPLF, the implications are profound. On one hand, as I said before, the TPLF has to move its military to the war zone, to the north. That gives more free zone for the Oromos to begin activating themselves. Currently now, the Oromos are under military occupation, direct military occupation. That will give them some release from daily military occupation. The possibility exists also, potential exists, that the Oromos can organize themselves, to empower themselves, to create some kind of a situation where they control their territory, empower themselves, and create a condition where they can defend. Also, during 1998 and 2000 war, the TPLF systematically recruited Oromo young soldiers put in front to use as a fodder, knowingly for the Oromo young soldiers to be killed in a massive population. The Tigray Liberation Front, its population is very small, maybe about 5% of people in Ethiopia, and maybe about 5 million. Oromos about 50 million. For them to do any harm to the Oromo's power, to reduce their power, for them is an important political event. Typically, historically, the Abashas, the Amharas and the Tigrayans have hostility toward the Oromo people at psychological level. They view Oromos as an imminent enemy, as a cardinal enemy. For the Abasha, historically, for the last 500 years, the fear that the Oromos are going to take over. And to them, the Oromo present the history of strong fighting, very large population, relatively large population, and also a sizable population of Oromia Muslims. For all of these reasons, there is this internal fear on the part of the Abyssinians, well, Amharas and Tigrayans, about the Oromos. Therefore, under this war situation, if the war to break out, the TPLF, out of desperation, can do more harm to the Oromo people because it has military. Right now, according to many sources, most of the generals are Tigrayans. Those who are conducting wars against Oromo territory are Tigrayans. Therefore, this kind of situation creates a typical case of genocide, a sense of desperation, full of hatred, and then lashing out with lethal weapons against a targeted population has been for a long time, in particular during the last 2 years, where the Oromos have protested in a massive way, historically unprecedented form of protest against the regime. In spite of these protests, seeking support from outside is all coming to the Oromo side. So it is, to me, the Oromo has to understand that it is on its own. Therefore, in my view, The first order for the Oromo is to understand its history, its current condition, its fate. The only thing that the Oromo has is itself now. This must be realized. So there must be absolute effort to create solidarity, to create resistance to the internal division, to the external attack. In addition, the Oromos have to learn how to work with outside world. In my view, I have been involved this over 3 decades now. This has been the weakest aspect of Oromo movement. And the Oromos in general don't understand how the outside world works. And they are not, my observation is they are not seem to be capable of rising to the occasion. And to me, what I have observed over 3 decades is that the Oromo response are episodic. Something dramatic happens, there's a rise up, popular shows, popular cry out, fundraising. When the dramatic events back home stops, then nothing happens. Like, for example, the last few months, last 2 years, when there was this big uprising back home, uprising at the same scale as they were the last 2 years, particularly toward the end of 2015. Therefore, I don't see major activities in terms of having new approaches to diplomacy, trying to create friends, trying to educate the outside world to understand the Oromo issues. And one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest negative result of the conflict with the Oromo Liberation Front, which started in 2001, was that as a result of the two parties fighting in the Borana territory, the Boranas are Oromos who are partly in Ethiopia, also partly in Kenya. By that kind of event, they completely undermined the integrity, the culture, and the ethos of local people. I have students here at the University of Manitoba from the Borana territory, and this is very unfortunate. When the OLF was in the government, OLF was fighting, the Boranas developed sympathy for the Oromo Liberation Front. It was a discussion in the parliament. According to some sources, the Oromo parliamentarians from the Borana territory in the Kenyan parliament, they were sympathetic. But all that is crushed because of this conflict. It is not too late to rebuild, but this is a new approach, a new generation of leadership. The Oromos have to think about what will happen to Oromo people during the 21st century. We already know what happened during the 20th century. Many conquered Oromo, completed Oromo conquest at the eve of 20th century. During the whole entire of the 20th century, the Oromos lived under hostile governments, successive regimes, Emperor Milik, Emperor Selassie, the Derg. Now, what Oromo should do for itself during this century, 21st century. Final point. In my view, I just completed a paper on the subject of the survival of Oromo nationalism. I grew up in a period where I also became exposed to intellectual life, scholarship on Ethiopian studies, when there was a view among the scholars that Oromos are not united, they do not have a central ethos or central belief system to pull them together. Therefore, Oromo nationalism could not take place. And I think the events we have seen during the last 2-3 decades has proved those kind of assumptions are wrong. And in 2012, I wrote a paper on the subject of who should teach Oromia and to whom. There are some Oromo intellectuals who think that, student movement, who think that they are the ones who taught Oromos Oromia who they were. They spoke Oromo language. They live in their own territory. They practice Oromo culture. Therefore, Oromia has never been forgotten. What was necessary was to galvanize these forces and teach them new methods of forging unity, solidarity, empowerment for themselves. That should be the mission of a new generation. And we need to get away from the politics of student movement, which has been influenced by mostly avant-garde intellectual tradition, way of thinking. Oromo need to go back to Oromo roots, Oromo worldview, which invested so much in solidarity, unity, and respect for life, respect for culture, dignity. The Oromo movement has to go back to that. So in summary, the Oromos have to work internally to create solidarity. The first century with a new interpretation, with a new form of vision to empower the Oromo people. So these are the opportunities, there are challenges. We fortunately live in 21st century in the era of high-tech, mass media, and social media. There are more opportunities than ever existed to teach Oromos about their history, about their culture, to aspire for solidarity, unity, full of purpose, national ethos. At the same time, also to communicate with the outside world. I was fortunate to have been involved with the formation of the Oromo Voice Radio program, which you guys started, you and others started. And I believe that this was one of the major events, and that can be a model for creating new voice for Oromo people, a new form of educational tools.
Thank you very much, Professor Hamdesa, for sharing your experience and knowledge about Horn of Africa, crisis in the Estra, and the Ethiopian war and the implication on Oromo people. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bye.